I recently moved into a cheap, slightly run-down apartment. It's not great, but it's all I can afford right now. And I don't mind the peeling paint or the faint smell of mold in the halls. What I do mind, though, are the weird holes I've started noticing in the walls. At first, I thought maybe they were just old nail holes, left over from previous tenants. But they were perfectly round and a little too small for that. I counted 4 in total, scattered in odd places across the apartment. My paranoia kicked in. I started to wonder if someone was watching me. The landlord assured me it was just old building quirks, but that didn't sit right with me. So one night, I took a roll of tape and covered the holes. Not a big deal, right? The next morning, I woke up, still half asleep, and went to make coffee. As I passed one of the holes, I noticed something strange. The tape I'd put over it was gone. Not ripped or torn, gone as if it had never been there. That freaked me out, but I thought maybe it hadn't stuck well and just fell off. I decided I'd try again, this time with something sturdier, maybe duct tape. But that wasn't the only weird thing that morning. When I left for work, I saw my neighbour standing in the hallway. I'd seen him before, of course. Average guy, probably mid-30s, always had this blank look on his face. But this time was different. He stared at me as I locked my door, a cold, unblinking stare that seemed to linger just a little too long. I gave him a polite nod, trying to shake the feeling that his eyes were digging into me. But he didn't move, didn't even acknowledge me. Just stood there, watching me. I forced myself to ignore it, brushing it off as a weird neighbour thing. But all day, I couldn't stop thinking about the missing tape and his stare. That night, as I came home, I noticed something unusual. His apartment door was open. Just a crack, but enough to make me curious. I paused, telling myself it wasn't my business, but something inside me urged me to look. So, I stepped forward and peered in. Inside, the apartment was dark, but I could see the faint glow of monitors casting an eerie light. I don't know what compelled me to enter, but I did. The place was a mess, papers strewn everywhere, cables tangled on the floor. My heart pounded as I took in the monitors lining one side of the wall. Each screen showed a different angle of my apartment. The kitchen, the bathroom, even my bedroom. They were all there, in real time. Every screen was a live feed, capturing my every movement. My skin crawled as I realized how long this had probably been going on. Then, I noticed something worse. One monitor, the largest one in the center, showed me standing right there in his apartment, staring at the screens. It had a timestamp on it that read just a few seconds in the future. And then, slowly, the timestamp changed, and I saw myself look up at the door. That's when I heard the floor creak behind me. I turned, and there he was, standing in the doorway, his eyes cold and unwavering. He didn't say a word, he just smiled. I ran out of there, and haven't gone back since. I filed a police report, but they didn't find him, and no one else has been able to confirm the cameras. I'm staying with a friend now, still looking over my shoulder, still feeling those eyes on me. I live in an old apartment building, the kind with creaky floors and walls so thin you can practically hear your neighbours breathe. My downstairs neighbour, a woman in her 30s named Cara, was the quiet type. She never made much noise, kept to herself, and barely said a word in passing. We'd only exchanged small talk a few times since I moved in, and it was always pleasant, if not a bit stilted. Honestly, I thought that's how she liked it. But a few weeks ago, things changed. One night, I was struggling to fall asleep when I heard noises coming from her apartment. It was around 2 a.m, and at first, it sounded like scratching, like something or someone scraping against the walls. I tried to ignore it, chalking it up to her rearranging furniture or something. But the noise didn't stop, it just grew louder. Soon, I could make out something else, something that made my skin crawl. Quiet whispering, almost like a chant, and then muffled screams. I shot out of bed, unsure what to do. Every instinct told me to go down there and check if she was okay. So, I threw on some clothes, grabbed my phone, and headed down to her door. When she answered, her eyes were bloodshot, like she hadn't slept in days. Her face was pale and drawn, and she looked at me as if I'd invaded her deepest secrets just by standing there. "Is everything all right? I heard noises," I stammered, trying to keep my voice steady. She stared at me for a long moment, and then she whispered, "You need to mind your own business. Don't come down here again." The door shut with a force that felt almost supernatural. I was shaken, but I didn't know what else to do. I went back upstairs and tried to sleep, though I kept an ear out for more noises. For the next few days, I didn't hear anything unusual. In fact, it was almost too quiet. Then I noticed something unsettling. Missing persons, posters with Kara's face on them, went up all over the neighborhood. They'd appeared overnight, each one showing her face, her same bloodshot eyes staring out at me from every pole, every storefront. The date on the poster said she'd been missing for 3 days. It didn't make any sense. I'd seen her 2 days ago when she'd told me to stay away. She'd looked strange, but she was there. Was it a mistake? Had she left without telling anyone? I tried to put it out of my mind, telling myself someone would sort it out. But that night, I heard scratching at my own door. The same awful, insistent noise from downstairs. I froze, every muscle in my body tensed. Then I heard her voice, whispering my name. "Come down, come down." I stayed up all night, too afraid to leave or even move. By morning, the scratching had stopped, but I knew I couldn't stay there. I packed a bag and left without a word to anyone. I checked the local news a few weeks later. They'd found her body in the apartment, hidden behind a false wall in the closet. She'd been dead for over a month. I know this sounds insane, but I swear to you, it's all real. When I first moved into my little rental, I was thrilled. It was my first time living on my own, and the neighborhood seemed perfect. Quiet, safe, full of friendly faces. One of those friendly faces was my neighbor, Mr. Schuster. He was in his 60s, the classic grandfather type, with a warm smile and an endless supply of home-baked treats. In the beginning, I didn't think much of it. I was touched that someone cared enough to check in on me. It felt nice, knowing someone was around. The first time he stopped by, he brought over an entire batch of brownies. "Just thought you might be hungry after all that unpacking," he said. And it was sweet of him, so I didn't mind when he asked to use my restroom or when he took a quick peek at my bookshelves, admiring my collection. But after he left, I noticed that a few things seemed off. The books weren't in the order I'd left them. My phone, which I'd left on the kitchen counter, was now on the couch. My framed photo of my parents was tilted. I convinced myself I was just tired. A few days later, Mr. Schuster showed up again, this time with a loaf of banana bread. He made small talk, mostly harmless questions about my job and my family. But again, as soon as he left, I found things that seemed out of place. My purse, which I'd left by the door, was moved to the kitchen. My closet door was ajar, though I was sure I'd closed it. It started to get to me, so I stopped answering the door. But he would linger, knocking for minutes at a time, even calling out, "I made muffins, I know you're home." His insistence was unsettling, but I didn't want to be rude, so the next time he showed up, I let him in. I watched him closely, but he acted normal. I started to feel foolish for being so suspicious. Then, last week, things took a turn. I woke up in the middle of the night, a cold, uneasy feeling in the pit of my stomach. I looked around the dark room, disoriented, and then I saw him. Mr. Schuster. He was standing at the foot of my bed. his hands folded calmly in front of him, just staring at me. My voice caught in my throat as he leaned forward and whispered, "You're never alone here." I don't remember how long I lay there, frozen. When I finally dared to move, he was gone. My door was still locked. I kept telling myself it was just a nightmare, but every little sound in my apartment makes me jump. I've been finding things rearranged every day since then. My kitchen utensils, my clothes, even the contents of my trash. I called the police. They checked the apartment, talked to him, but said he was just a concerned neighbour. They never found anything suspicious. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and check out my other content on the screen now.